Minor league opening day for the AAA level is underway. We're also starting to get the rosters trickling out across the other levels. So we will have an episode separately on that once all of those rosters are confirmed. But we wanted to recap AAA opening weekend. And then finally, we got the breakout prospect candidates for 2025. One of my favorite things to put together every year. That article is live linked in the episode description, but we're going to walk through all of those players as well. Of course, you got Jack McMullen and I'm Aram Layton. I'm excited to recap AAA, but it also made me realize how much of the top 100 talent is actually at the lower levels and working its way up right now because we had some interesting players make their AAA either debuts or just make their season debut or whatever it may be. But I don't know. There's just so much. There's so many more players. I'm so excited to see. Even these assignments, I'm like on the edge of my seat, like waiting to find out where some of these players are getting assigned.
Yeah, I mean, AAA is interesting because, and like, obviously, I've lived it for the last 3 years, but you have like this blend of, oh, wow, Chase Dollander's about to throw for Albuquerque. But then, you also are looking at like
He's
Jeffrey
opposite of like
Yan.
Jarrell Cotton.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
It's like that guy's in AAA right now. And we're going to talk about JT Ginn, who still has some prospect intrigue, but you remember that he threw 34 innings with Oakland last year. And I don't know. It's interesting because you've got a bunch of guys just kind of hanging around in AAA, and you blend that with the 21-year-old wonderkins that are already in AAA. And it's the most eclectic group of baseball that we have, I think, AAA baseball, because there are a bunch of big leaguers and there are a bunch of top prospects. But double A, like that's actually where you may get a prospect 1 through 9 in a lineup.
yeah, that's the interesting thing is AAA has kind of become this taxi squad for a lot of teams
Yeah.
in one way or another. But not as much with arms, but you see it with bats at points too. I realized too we didn't put it down in the rundown, but we should probably talk a couple bats at the end, just because right before we transition into the breakouts, because that Roman Anthony guy hit 2 home runs, including a 110 bomb, and Manuel Rodriguez is hitting laser beams.
He was fine. I will say, take back the taxi squad for pitcher things because we're going to see friend of the program Thomas Harrington debut for the Pirates today against Tampa.
Exactly, exactly. Oh, he gets up, and that's going to be fun. I mean,
Be
that's
really fun.
they need a jolt. Hopefully, a quality start from your rookie can be that jolt. It's not going to be the Paul Skeens jolt because he's a guy that's going to fill up the zone and just massage his way through a lineup. But I mean, Harrington should have probably broke camp if we're really being honest. I would have probably just had a rotation spot for him because of the
I
command.
for one am stunned that Carmen Mlodzinski struggled.
Yeah, I mean, like
I
it
mean,
just
he struggled as a starting pitcher in high A and double A. What are we doing, man?
and then you finally found him as a successful reliever, at least looking like he could be a seventh inning guy. And you have all these rotation pieces, and you say, "Nah, let's try this thing one more time for good measure." Like it makes no sense. The Pirates are kind of just aimlessly wandering. It feels like right now, but very excited for Thomas Harrington, who I think is going to be a walking quality start. Whether it happens right away or not, by the time he's settled into the major leagues, I think he's a walking quality start and a high probability for.
Yeah, I totally think so. And man, like, I don't know, I'm with you. It felt like it would have made sense for him to break camp with Pittsburgh. Obviously, you've got that Bubba Chandler guy who's hanging out and really excited to see Bubba throw in AAA. But man, I mean, Harrington, I feel like that's a guy that is not going to get burned. And if he does get burned, it's going to be because of contact and a lot of hard contact. But I prefer that over a guy losing a game himself. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like taking himself out of competitive baseball, and that's never going to be him. He's going to fill up the zone with multiple offerings, like you said, and excited to see what he can do against Tampa.
A top 100 guy for us too, because he does miss just enough bats to,
Yeah.
I think mitigate that when he's on. And of course, yeah, the days where he's off, it can be hit hard, but you still feel like he's going to at least labor through those 5 innings, preserve the bullpen, and there's a lot of value to those guys, especially nowadays, because you also have a lot of other high octane, really exciting starters who you have high variance with, and that kind of leads us into the first guy. But I mean, you couldn't have asked for a much better start to the season from Jacob Misiorowski, the Milwaukee Brewers, one of the best pitching prospects in the game when he's on. And he goes 5 innings, 1 hit, 3 walks, 7 Ks against a very solid Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp lineup. What I love is 79 pitches, 52 strikes, and he was establishing the heater and with confidence. I mean, that's a pitch that when he's sitting, he averaged 97 miles per hour in this outing. with the plus plus extension that he gets, when he sets the tone with that, then the cutter working off of that, the curveball working off of that, hitters are totally sped up once you have to respect the fastball. But when he's not locating it, it can create a little bit more of a patient situation for hitters where they're just not going to swing nearly as much and just hunt for the fastball in one spot. In this outing, man, like we see what happens when he's confident and commanding. Only one hit.
That's what he is, though. Like, that's what he was at all times last year, too. It's like, hey, good luck hitting him. The question is going to be, can you throw the ball in the general vicinity of the strike zone and not hit guys? And I actually had a really good conversation with Jeff Nelson during our game last night. Jeff Nelson, the former setup guy for the Yankees, he was Mariano's setup guy. And I mean, he made an all-star team where he walked 6 hitters per 9. And we started talking about like Misiorowski came up during Marlins Mets out of nowhere, and we were kind of surprised that he came up. But we were talking about the Randy Johnson effect and the Blake Snell effect, guys that are going to beat themselves, but you're not going to get beat enough to have a bad outing. You know what I mean? It's going to look like you're tight roping through 5 innings. If it doesn't look like he's tight roping, nobody's beating him within the strike zone. Like this is a guy that the Brewers are unlocking, and if he gives you 3 or 4 more starts where the strike rate is like this and he keeps the walks and the hit batsman in check, why isn't he in a rotation that already lost Aaron Savali to a hamstring strain?
And has given up 85 earned runs or something like that through the
Yeah.
first 3 games. Like, yeah, I mean, why not roll the dice at that point? And yeah, you're going to have to weather the storm of maybe some ups and downs and days where he doesn't totally have it. But I think with him, like, they have a long relief guy and Connor Thomas, who they took in the Rule 5, who was part of that kind of bombs away from the Bronx Bombers. But you have that long relief guy ready in the early going if Misiorowski doesn't have it, and you'll know usually when he doesn't have it. But what I do think with Misiorowski that's impressive to a degree is even when he doesn't have it, like you said, like when he's walking guys or whatever, he misses so many bats that he can kind of navigate enough to get through 4 or 5. Like I don't think there's too often where he's not getting out of the first or second inning when the command's not there. Like he'll make it work. But I mean, to see him filling up the zone relatively well for especially for his standards to this first outing and establishing that fastball that got up to 99 miles per hour and that cutter at 93. He threw 25 of them, 20 for a strike. So the confidence in that cut is huge. And he was just busting it in on the hands of lefties. He can like just lean on. He could probably like Mariano Rivera it and throw that pitch like the days of his fastball command's not there. Throw that pitch more than the fastball. Throw it 60-70% of the time. I don't see how guys are going to hit a 93-mile-an-hour cutter from a 7.5 release, or a 7.5 extension, excuse me. Like I just don't see how that's happening.
Can I give you a weird little nugget from that outing, just based on like the Hawkeye data in Nashville, the publicly available stuff on Baseball Savant? Like Misiorowski, I mean, you mentioned the strike rate on the slider. He led AAA ball in whiffs that day. He and Carson Whisenhunt both got 14 swings and misses. So you mentioned he sat 96, 97. He topped at 99 with that four-seamer. He sat 93 with that cutter and then 85 with the curveball. So everything is incredibly hard. His slowest pitch was 85 miles an hour. But the thing that jumps out to me too is just sheer spin. The fastball was his spinniest pitch. That was the highest
Yeah,
RPM
that is
pitch.
wild.
And he was throwing a pair of breaking balls. I was like, how does that make any sense? But that four seam fastball, average spin rate on that was over 2,600 RPMs. That is jumping
Yeah,
on guys.
it's insane. And from that whippy long release, and I think he kind of ditched the bigger sliders, just going with the more downer curveball at 85, the four seamer, and that cutter. And through spring training, so if you include spring training with that start that we just went over, 72% strike rate on that cutter, and he's throwing it 20% of the time. Whereas last year he only threw it 9% of the time. So a pitch that he has more confidence in, that he's throwing more, that might be enough to mitigate the walks enough. And a Jacob Misiorowski with 40 grade command is going to be a big league starter and a good one. So
Yep.
that's all he needs to be.
Yep.
JT Ginn, we've seen him up at the big league level for the Athletics, and I watched that game yesterday. It wasn't Ginn. We'll get to the AAA start in a second, but the Cubs teed
Big
off.
league game. Yeah.
Yeah. Cubs teed off there in that AAA ballpark in Sacramento, which looked cool. I will say it did look cool. I'm not going to bail Rob Manfred out for calling it the minor league parks that two major league teams are playing in charming, but it was a cool like scene in the back, just seeing it that packed and everything. You know why it's that packed? Because it's a major league team
Yeah.
that should be playing in a major league stadium. They teed
In
off.
Northern California. Yeah.
Yeah, in Northern California. They teed off, and meanwhile in the PCL, and they being the Cubs. Meanwhile in the PCL, JT Ginn goes 5 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 1 walk, 8 Ks. Now
Yeah.
Ginn wasn't fantastic at the big league level at the end of last year, but he wasn't bad at all. I
No.
4.24, 3.89 FIP in those what was it 34 innings. But
Hmm.
what I've been interested in this spring is he's throwing the ball harder. In that big league debut, his fastball averaged 93 miles per hour in those 8 starts. And in spring training, of course, you got to sustain it, but in spring training, his fastball is averaged 95 miles per hour. And in that start against Reno, he averaged 95.2 miles per hour. So he's up multiple ticks, and he's a sinker slider guy. And you talk about this a lot with Brady Singer, how that sinker at 93 versus 95, it's so much easier to get the ground balls because the bite is just later and sharper and harder. And I think that is really helping JT Ginn, which is why he went 5 shutty with 8 Ks and 1 walk.
By the way, on Brady Singer, did I not call it the Sabonis Halliburton trade? Like this was the most even trade
That's
of the MLB
upselling it so
offseason.
hard, though. Like it's the
It
relative
is.
Sabonis
I
Halliburton
understand, but
trade.
like it's the role player
No.
Sabonis Halliburton trade where like both teams got a lot better, and Brady Singer in his Reds debut, man, like 7 1-hit shutout innings with 8 punchouts. Like,
Yeah.
whoa,
Yeah.
dude. Welcome to Cincinnati. Get ready to
Yeah.
learn Skyline Chili, brother.
Yep.
But no, Ginn is an interesting guy because last year he was rolling ground balls at what a 55% clip last year
Yep.
in the minor league. So that in and of itself like creates this floor for him
Hmm.
that will make him a serviceable 5 star.
Yep.
But if he ticks up to this point, like why can't he be a 4
Hmm.
for the A's? And we put together like this A's rotation moving forward, and we say, okay, Sevy, Springs, and then you've got Mason Barnett and Jack Perkins coming through, and then Luis Medina at some point. We are not mentioning JT Ginn whatsoever. He can start to force people's hand and say, wait, he can be considered part of this rotational idea, not just in 25, but in 26 and 27 and 28.
And he might be a breath of fresh air because there's just some volatility there. By the way, fantastic stuff from Springs as well.
Hmm.
But what they're getting from, I don't know what JP Sears' contractual situation is, but like what Sears was able to give them at points, just consistently going 6, 7 innings, just eating them. Like I think that's what you can get, and maybe a more elevated version, a little bit higher of a ceiling with a JT again. So I think you got to be really excited about that outing, especially on the back of a Mason Barnett outing that was not good at the AAA level. I'm not too worried about it. I think that was, early in the year, and I think I'm trying to remember if he got up to AAA last year. I don't think so. No, he didn't. So AAA debut, he walked 6 though. That was kind of weird. But for JT Ginn to have such a strong start, that slider I think flashes plus. So you've got the harder sinker that can get ground balls, slider that flashes plus. I think he's going to be able to be a solid 5 and just fill out that rotation because that the Athletics are going to bang. Like they're going to be able to put up numbers.
Yep. The problem is they got what 18 hung on them, and Carson Kelly and Mark Grace have something in common now.
The Carson Kelly hitting for the cycle is
It's
outrageous.
crazy. We got a text in our social group chat for Just Baseball, and somebody said, if anyone's up, Carson Kelly just hit for this cycle. And I had no idea that we were on cycle watch that late at night. Like I got home, I was just hanging out, I was laying in bed, and it was like, hey, Carson Kelly just hit for the cycle. I
Yeah,
I was
if
off
anyone's
my
awake to
rocker.
see it, um, yeah, you won't believe what happened. You know how many people probably woke up and said Carson Kelly did what?
Yeah, exactly. Who did that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what? Uh, Ian Seymour. There's not really much room for this guy at the big league level just yet. The Rays left-handed pitcher had a great start to the season after what was a phenomenal year last year, which made him a no-brainer to be added to the 40-man roster. 2.7, or excuse me, a 2.33 ERA at the AAA level in 10 starts last year. And
Yeah.
then in his first start this year, 5 innings, 4 hits, no runs, 1 walk, 5 Ks. He only throws 91 to 92 miles per hour, but there's deception, there's vertical life, like really good vertical life, a disgusting changeup, and then he has enough going for him horizontally. With the volatility in this Rays rotation and good volatility, meaning like you have McClanahan who could be one of the best pitchers in the game, but you're hoping he can stay healthy. You have Ryan Pepe out who looks like he could be that frontline guy. You made that case on the Just Baseball show, but it's been ups and downs historically. And Shane Baz, what are you going to get? Ian Seymour, Drew Rasmussen's injury history. Ian Seymour is just another one of those guys that I think you could plug in and feel really good about him grabbing the ball every fifth day and giving you a shot to win because I just he seems like such a high probability 5 starter as well.
That's the thing. It's like, okay, he's probably just a 5 starter, but we know pitching depth is a problem in Tampa, or at least it's something that they need to tap into every year in Tampa. And why can't Ian Seymour be one of those guys that plugs in and plays?
Mhm.
Sometimes we see them get crafty with the opener and things like that. Zach Littell was good, not great last year. I think it's weird to say Zach Littell was overrated in 2024, but he gets higher marks than he probably should have gotten for a team that always wants to be in a wild card conversation. Like, why can't Ian Seymour give them what Zach Littell gave them last year?
Yeah.
And I think that there's a world where he can. And this is what Tampa does. As soon as a guy gets to arbitration, you swap him out for a pre-arb guy and you start a new clock. And that is where Ian Seymour is at this point, I think.
And I almost don't want to put a ceiling on Seymour because like we would have put a ceiling on Jeffrey Springs, right? And there's a lot of similarities there too. So who knows? Maybe he'll squeeze some more drops out of it and be closer to that middle rotation arm. Probably far-fetched, but I wouldn't rule anything out, especially in that organization and especially with the way that Seymour's been throwing.
Yeah.
Chase Dollander and Carson Whisenhunt dueled. And that was pretty cool. But would you have expected Carson Whisenhunt to win that duel first time out here in the season?
No. And here's what I want to say about that ball game. It was one of the more fun ball games to just go back and like box score look at and then also watch a little quick recap on and just click through the highlights because that seemed like a big league game that was happening in Sacramento on Sunday, where you have Dollander starting and the line on Dollander was 4 innings, a 1-run ball. He worked around 6 hits, he K'd 5 and walked 2. Whisenhunt, 4 2/3, 4 hits, 2 runs. He K'd 9,
Yeah.
didn't walk anyone. But Albuquerque, after 2 innings from a guy, Dugan Darnell, I've never heard of him. You go Jeffrey Yan, who's an electric factory, perfect inning with 2 punch outs. Then Jaden Hill, and then Zach Agnos, who got the save, perfect inning with 2 punch outs. And then you've got Zach Veen going 1 for 3. You've got Warming Bernabel with a 2 for 4 day. Grant McCray was 3 for 4. Jake Lamb was 2
Jake
for 4.
Lamb.
Brett Auerbach was 2 for 4. Like that did feel like a well executed AAA ball game.
Yeah.
And that's one where if you went to the ballpark and you watched that game in 2 hours and 29 minutes, you left very happy.
Yeah. And Yanquiel Fernandez walked.
Yeah, there we go. Leaps and bounds.
I love the point that you bring up in the bullpen. We could see that as like 7, 8, 9, or at least like at some point. I think Halverson's going to be the closer, but
Yeah, you factor in Halverson and Chivilli too, like
but
Kinley.
you should
Yeah,
see these guys in the big league bullpen sooner rather than later. Hill,
for
as long
sure.
as he's healthy. Jan, I think will get up there quickly. And Agnes, we just did the Rockies top prospects. Like I think this guy's one of the better relief prospects in baseball right now.
Yes, absolutely, man. But that is a fun ball game to just kind of go through and watch like my own version of a condensed game. Thought Dollander looked free like, on the mound. And again, like I know that Whisenhunt technically put up the better line, but Dollander, he looks like that 2022 Chase Dollander that everybody was saying was pitcher one going into 2023. And we saw that last year, but just the fact that he came back and did it again in his first start, like get this guy to Colorado, man.
Yeah, it just needed to execute a little bit better with the secondaries, but that's the thing is like his fastball's so good. He averaged 97.6. He went 4 innings, 1 run ball, 2 walks, 5 Ks. He wasn't even executing his secondaries the way that he can. So like you imagine what that's going to look like when he's got everything working for him. Like those days, he should be on no hitter watch. With Whisenhunt, it's establishing the fastball, and he did that right. 65 pitches, 49 strikes, and then the changeup really works off of that. But when he doesn't establish the heater, then hitters can kind of wait out that changeup. 8 of his 9 strikeouts came on the changeup. So that was a fun matchup. You don't usually get two, as we kind of alluded to in the beginning. You don't usually get two prospect arms in AAA dueling against each other at the same time. So it's always fun when that happens.
Totally with you.
Two prospect arms to wrap up on that side that did not have the best start to their season at AAA and didn't finish great last year at AAA. So it might become a little bit of a narrative here until they break it. Quinn Mathews and Brandon Sproat. They didn't pitch against each other, but we'll start with Mathews, who's a little bit better. Mathews, I'm not worried about it. He had a good spring, but now this is 5 bad AAA starts. And bad might be a little bit harsh. He went 4 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 1K. But what's weird is like Quinn Mathews was not around the zone in this one, which is like that's who Quinn Mathews is. 55% strike rate in that outing. That doesn't seem very Quinn Mathews.
Yeah. No, and like I kind of just want to throw it out the window
Yeah,
because I saw him shove in spring
I agree.
breakout and he shoved at points in big league spring. So I'm just willing to rinse that and watch him next time.
He literally on the 21st went 4 innings against the Astros, like the Major League Astros of scoreless ball with 2 walks and 6 Ks. I think you throw this one out.
The other guy that you're going to bring up is somebody that I am a little worried about because AAA has proven to be a legit hurdle for him.
Yes, this one's a little different because it's not like he was out there shoving in spring training either. And it's also with Sproat, command is the question. You go to the final level here before you get to the bigs where the zone is going to get the tightest and the hitters are going to be the most disciplined. And I think it's affecting him a little bit, right? Like those bailout chases aren't coming as much. Maybe those in zone whiffs when you're behind aren't quite as frequent. I still love him. I still think he's one of the better pitching prospects that we got. But it was also interesting to see in just 57 pitches that velocity, he averaged 95.6 miles per hour on the fastball. He only had one start last year where he averaged below that. And that was in 85 pitches. So we were hoping that he builds up and gets his legs under him and everything, but 2 innings, 3 hits, 4 earned, 3 walks, 3 Ks. The command wasn't really there, but also like I don't know if it was a matter of hitters not really respecting his ability to land stuff for strikes, or if the stuff wasn't working as well. I would venture to say it's probably the former,
Yeah.
because the stuff just look at it. But 56% strike rate and the fastball, man, he threw 12 four-seamers, 7 were balls, and then he threw 9 sinkers and 3 were balls. So it's just really hard to succeed if you can't land your fastball for a strike more than you throw it for a ball.
Now, granted, if there's any lineup to nibble with in AAA baseball, it's probably the one that he saw. So that is the one silver lining. Like he was seeing a lineup that had Roman Anthony at the top, Marcelo Meyer, Trace Thompson, who had as good
I
of a
mean,
spring training as anybody in
he's a big
baseball.
leaguer.
Vaughn Grissom was in there. Abraham Toro, another big leaguer, he was in there. Hickey is one of the better AAA hitters that there is that nobody knows. Sebi Zavala, big leaguer. Nate Eaton,
Yeah,
big
that
leaguer.
is
Like
that is a tough lineup.
it's a really tough lineup in Worcester there. And obviously you've got Roman being a tone setter at the top of that, and nobody wants to pitch to Roman Anthony right now, and nobody wants to pitch to Marcelo Meyer after what he did in spring training too. So that's like the silver lining, I
Yeah.
guess. But I'm with you. It had to be the former. Like they just weren't necessarily respecting that he was going to land pitches for strikes, and they were waiting until they got something that made their eyes light up right off the fingertips. And when they did get something like that, they hit it.
Yep. Yep. And I just want to shout out real quick a healthy Shane Drohan. Returned from the Rule 5, was hurt. Now he's back and it's just one outing, but he went 2 innings and his velocity was up to 94. He was more in the low 90s before. So
Hmm.
sitting 94 was great to see. And then Brian Mata, another often injured guy, pitched a clean inning, 96 with the fastball. So well, yeah, I just love to see guys healthy and throwing well. So two guys there that kind of been wondering what it's going to look like this year, especially Mata. So that was nice to see.
Can
Um,
I ask you a quick question?
yeah,
Why is Luis Guerrero not in that Red Sox bullpen?
Dude,
Is there no
I,
space?
I don't know. I didn't I make a case for him to potentially be a starter when we and not we're not doing this like threads thing again. Like we're talking about everyone wants to make everyone a starter. I promise I'm not going to do that this much on this show. But yeah, this is a guy that you could have throwing in multi-inning relief. Of course, you're not going to make him a starter now, but it makes no sense that he's not in the bullpen right now. I
Right.
don't get it. Fastball average is 97, the sweeper's plus, and he's got a changeup, a splitter. Like it's pretty wild. He can come at you with a bunch of different offerings. He should be up there soon. I'd imagine he's got to be one of the first names up.
I would think so. They signed Justin Wilson to a major league deal, and obviously he's a lefty, so you're not doing anything there. But in terms of righties, like it probably did come down to him and Greg Weissert, maybe Zach Kelly, but you also want a guy like Luis Guerrero with how hard he throws and how good the stuff is, throwing leverage innings. And honestly, good for the Boston Red Sox. There really is no space for leverage innings right now because
Yeah.
you've got Whitlock in the seventh, and that 8-9 tandem of Slayton and Chapman, that might be the most underrated 8-9 tandem
Yeah.
in baseball. I
Slayton's a
think
dog.
Slayton is absolutely disgusting.
I still can't believe that the Rangers didn't protect him. I think I don't remember if I said it on here or on the Just Baseball show, but like I could have never watched that guy pitch. And this isn't hindsight because you can go look at
Yeah,
the Rule 5 preview. Where I was like, why is this guy available from
right.
2023 or yeah, 2023? But the if I could have you could have just exported the TrackMan data and I would have just said protect that guy. Like I'm surprised because the Rangers are really good with it. But there's so many names you have to monitor. Their 40 man is always so tight.
Yeah,
I guess they just figured it wouldn't be as much of an issue, and they could really use a Justin Slayton right now. I'll tell you that.
for sure.
Just a couple quick bats, just to shout out Roman Anthony with two bombs, just a absolute nuke dead central, then a backside bomb. We've talked about on the Just Baseball show, like if Rafael is not swinging it well by the end of the month, you gotta just go shove this guy up to the big leagues and just give yourself just a lineup of that could be the Avengers.
Yes.
Then Emmanuel Rodriguez, healthy.
Mhm.
Like, just please stay healthy. Another guy that, I mean, you don't need to find a spot for him. If the Twins continue to suck this bad, you're gonna get that guy up there ASAP
Yep.
because he's gonna just add a layer that you just desperately need, which is good defense if you need it in any of the three spots, but can play a solid center the days you want to get Buxton off, and then can hit absolute bombs and get on base at a high clip. He hit a ball 114. It was a 96 mile per hour Braxton Ashcraft fastball that he smacked 114 for a double.
Yeah.
Yeah, just impressive from him so far as well. And then just a few Kyle Teal, new max
Yeah.
EV 111. He's never hit one that hard.
Yeah, and how about just the outright numbers? 6 for 12 so far with two homers, a double, and nine driven in. He's K'd twice in how many plate appearances? In 14 plate appearances?
It's crazy. We were talking about this we did like a live stream in the Discord last night, and one of the questions was how many players in the Charlotte Knights would be upgrades from what they've got on the big league roster? And I generally hate playing that game, but
Yeah, but
in this sense, like the catching tandem in Charlotte is so much better than the catching tandem at the big league level. It's nuts.
yeah.
Like that's like not even a joke. Like, both catchers are I think upgrades. Caro as well. So that part is really cool. By the way, you can join our Discord. It's a new month, but anytime
Yep.
you join, you have it for those 30 days. Link is in the episode description. We'll love to have you in there. I've been doing a lot of bonus content already in there on the prospect front. Um, yeah,
I've
I
got
mean,
two more
bats wise,
names.
we'll check in
Yeah.
more later. I think we might as well jump to the breakout guys, unless there was anyone else you wanted to mention.
I have two real quick. I think Nick Kurtz is important to mention.
Oh yeah,
Kurtz in 3 games in AAA, 5 for 11, two walks, two Ks, but two doubles, a homer, and three driven in. Kurtz has gotten off to a really good start. And Justin Henry Malloy is officially too good for AAA baseball.
yeah,
Has to be in the big leagues.
yeah,
Malloy's gotten off to a great start too.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and he was up there. Did I not just watch him in the big leagues yesterday? I think he found a barrel
He
immediately.
might have been. Yeah, he
Yeah,
might have been up there. So he was just kind of a time buyer, I guess.
yeah, but I think it was because something happened. Like he needs to just be up there. I agree with you. Kurtz smacked a homer 109 off John Curtis, and it's just been finding barrels as well. And he's gonna
So
walk.
Like, there you go. There's the AAA conversation again. Nick Kurtz off John Curtis.
Yeah,
Like, come on, man.
it's great.
It's
Um,
great.
we'll get into the breakout prospects in a moment here. Before that, a break. All right, this is one of my favorite things to do every year, and we did the recap during the off season of kind of like how did we do on last year's breakout prospects. As always, it was a mixed bag. There were some whiffs, there were some pretty good calls there as well, and then some in between. This one, it's going to be the same thing again, I'm sure, but I don't know. There's some names where I feel like I almost played it too safe, and then I thought about it and I talked about it with you, and you're like, no, I think it's just because like we've been just talking about those guys so much. So we'll just jump right into it, and it's going to be kind of more spread out. I wrote it down like stream of consciousness wise. The article is linked in the episode description, but I'm just
Yeah.
going to go in order from how I wrote them, and we'll go from there. The first one, and Jack, feel free to like voice which ones you like more. I'm genuinely curious because we haven't really talked about it. Which of the breakout picks you like more than the others? I'm sure there's not going to be one where you're like, oh, he's not breaking out. But if there's one that you're like, I'm in stamped, like
I
let
don't
me
know. The $10,000 Diamondbacks pitcher you said. The odds are stacked
know.
against him.
He shouldn't have said that right as I took a sip. That's the one that you're here tonight.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know. Haven't heard that name before. I'm out.
But Jaxon Wiggins is the first guy. I imagine that you're probably pretty in on this dude.
Yeah.
It's a pretty easy sell, is it not? You got a 6'7" right-hander who is coming off of Tommy John surgery, but it's like the perfect timing for the breakout too, where he was drafted in 2023. That was with his whole season wiped out. He would have been a first round pick had he not undergone Tommy John surgery. The Cubs liked him so much that they said, "We don't care. We'll take over the back end of your recovery, and we'll nurse you back to health and ease you into your pro debut," which came in 2024. They grabbed him in the second round, still, by the way. So he works his way back onto the complex on like early May, and then kind of makes his official return in June of 24, where they eased him in like 3 innings. Then he built up a little bit to 4, and then finished the year with 5 innings. The further he's gotten away from this Tommy John surgery, the harder he's starting to throw again, and
Yeah.
it's with ease. And in spring training, I've heard he's up to 100, and I mean he's sitting more upper 90s. I think he's a guy that's probably going to be up like 2 ticks,
Yeah.
maybe at least up a tick from last year. The fastball averaged last year about 96.5 miles per hour. I could easily see him up to like 97, 97 and a half this year. So you imagine that from a 6'7" frame. And then the stuff is just outrageous. He's got a disgusting slider, a splitter that just darts off the table. And it really just comes down to command, which I think he's going to get better and better with as he gets further away from Tommy John surgery and just throws more innings in general. So I'm really excited about what he could potentially do this year because a breakout from Jaxon Wiggins, we talk about it like these are all relative breakouts.
Hmm.
It's some guys that are in prospect obscurity that I think will cement themselves as top 15 in the system. Some guys are top 100 guys that I think are going to just climb into consensus top 50. With Jaxon Wiggins, it's a little bit more on the higher end where I think by the middle or end of this year, he could be a consensus top 100 guy with an upper 90s fastball, a plus changeup, and a slider that looks like he can be at least above average as well.
Obviously, they throw with different hands, but it feels like the conversation could trend similarly to Jackson Ferris, where,
Yeah,
like
very
you
similar.
see him just kind of blossom, 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 and then all of a sudden everybody's like, yeah, no, that's a top 100 arm because he's good. Sometimes it's as simple as big man throw hard, nasty gets healthier. And that's exactly what Jaxon Wiggins is. It's why, I've bought into it several guys before. Like, I just think nasty getting healthier, like year removed from Tommy John surgery. Like, it's why a lot of people love Grant Taylor at this point.
Oh
It's
yeah.
why a lot of people liked Peyton Pillette in the White Sox organization for a little bit as well. It's why I really like Blake Burkhalter with the Braves. And Wiggins is the best of all of them, just in terms of sheer stuff.
Yeah. And I was thinking about it like should Grant Taylor be a breakout name, but I almost feel like
People already saw it.
it's too insane already. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
too publicly insane. Um yeah, and the last thing I'll say on Wiggins is if he doesn't break out, and I kind of want to give like a reason why they may not break out, it's going to be
Yeah.
the command. Like
Yeah.
far too many non-competitive pitches last year and a 59% overall strike rate. You're going to want to see it be better than that. And it's going to be hard to break out with those numbers, but that was also returning from Tommy John. So excited to see what it looks like this year.
Yeah.
Max Acosta. I know you're going to stamp this one, baby. Shortstop in the Marlins system, who I know you got to see plenty of in the backfields. This isn't even just you being a company man here. But I mean, this was cool because I fell in love with the adjustments that he made and the progress that he made. And we talked about that before you had the opportunity to now see him play all the time in the backfields during spring training. So you were almost able to like verify, say like, is it looking as ridiculous as I thought it looked on video in the second half? And the answer was yes. I mean, not just with the way that he is impacting the baseball and the way he goes about his business, but the
Yeah.
defense at short too.
He looks like a big leaguer, man. Like he was playing in some big league spring games and he was in big league camp for a little bit. And that was, not a tough option because he hadn't even played in AAA baseball yet, but he's in Jacksonville right now. But, that's one of those where you were almost bummed to see him like get reassigned to minor league camp, or I guess option because I think he's 40 man. But I mean, that was one where as soon as that happened, I just went around and asked the coaching staff, it's like, what'd you think of Acosta? And they were like, we loved him. Like, he's a legit big league shortstop. And there's staying power at shortstop, big time. He looked the part. And looking the part is a huge thing for a guy this young. And I love the point that you make in the write-up. Like, at first glance, it is really tough to let a veteran presence, albeit you still had 4 more years of control of Jake Berger, but a veteran presence in that clubhouse go. But you understand like the tantalizing potential of Acosta and what you've already seen, what he's already putting on film and on the stat page in big league spring training games and in minor league baseball. Like he's just scraping the surface of who he can be as a good major league shortstop.
And that was the Marlins leveraging the 40-man availability there because I don't think the Rangers wanted to move him. They were patient with him. He was a big ticket IFA guy, but the Rangers are as crowded of a 40-man roster as you've got. And Acosta was grabbing a 40-man spot. They added him to the 40 for a reason.
Yeah.
The second half that he had, like you look at the numbers on the surface. Oh, he had a 777 OPS in AA. But he made a mechanical adjustment, which we dove into, that really, I think, simplified things, got rid of a big leg kick that kind of pushed him forward, went to the toe tap. And sometimes when guys do that, they lose the whippiness and the bat speed. He gained more because he was actually able to use the ground better. And after he made that adjustment around the All-Star break, he hit 335, 401, 513 in AA while upping his average exit velocity by 2.5 miles per hour and cutting his chase rate by 8% because he has way more time to see the ball. The ball was coming to him. And then you pair that with the defense and how it's progressed. I think this is a top 100 prospect by midseason. I really do.
That. I love that. Say it with your chest, big fella.
Guy that is a top 100 prospect already, Brody Hopkins. I don't need to sell you on him either. You might like him even more than I do. Relative breakout because he had a good year last year, but I think it's very easy to look at Brody Hopkins and say this guy is not near where he could ultimately be. If Hopkins, and also, by the way, if Acosta doesn't get there, it would be probably because he's just not able to repeat some of those adjustments that he made, and there might be a learning curve in AAA, but it's a little bit harder to find anything specific that I think would result in him not quite getting to where I think he can. With Hopkins, It's kind of easy. It's the command conversation. All right.
Yeah.
Can you throw from that 4.8 freak show release and throw strikes at a higher clip than 59%? Can you throw your 7 pitches essentially that move in all different directions around the zone enough to succeed? Because if it is around the zone enough to succeed, he's going to strike out a lot of people and he's going to get a lot of weak contact. I see the potential for a 70 fastball, a plus slider, an above average sweeper, an average cutter, and then the changeup that he mixes in. And if he's got that going, like he's a strong pitching prospect, and I think easily in the consensus top 100.
He is such a good athlete. Like it's hard to fathom how well he moves down the mound, and that's what makes me think that the strike rate is going to jump north of 60%. And like, where do you need to see the overall strike rate jump? So it's 59 right now, right? That's a failing grade, obviously. Do you need it to be a D plus, a C minus? Like a C minus is really, really good in terms of strike rate. I feel like if he gets to 64, 65%,
he's fine.
he's fine.
because he gets ground balls. 54% ground ball rate too. So like you're going to have 2-0 counts where guys are going to try to get to that sinker and when it runs 15 inches horizontally, they're going to roll it over. It's just
You
going to happen.
you detailed it perfectly. He's going to get swings underneath the four seamer and he's going to get the swings over the top of the sinker. Like he's got two fastballs that are going to get two totally different swings and it's going to result in exactly what he needs. And I've done this. I don't set these expectations on him, but again, like we are 2 years into Paul Skeens, the full-time pitcher. We're 1 year into Brody
Yeah.
Hopkins, the full-time pitcher.
Yeah.
And
People,
Brody Hopkins, year one as a full-time pitcher, I couldn't give a shit if he has command issues, to be honest, because what he just showed year one of being fully committed to pitching is a guy that threw over 100 innings at an ERA in the low threes.
and a
Like
huge leap from where he was before too. When he was
a
doing both at
humongous leap.
Winthrop, I mean, he was walking like a batter per inning almost. So
So here we are talking about a guy that is refined after 1 year and still has a ton of boxes to check on the mound. Like
yeah,
with how well he moves down the mound, with how big he is, with how unique the delivery is, and with, him being able to focus all of his attention on one thing. I mean, dude, it's the Bubba Chandler thing too. Think about that. As soon as that guy decided he wanted to pitch full time, he became one of the better pitching prospects in all of baseball because and we talked to him on this very show about that. It's like, oh wow, I have way more time to
yeah,
do things pitching related
yeah.
now than I did when I was trying to allocate some time towards hitting as well. I think this guy with a full offseason under his belt of being just a pitcher, you're going to see a new and improved Brody Hopkins from an already great Brody Hopkins.
Yeah, I mean, just think about the two organizations that targeted him too.
Yeah.
Seattle, who does a great job with their arms, and then the Rays targeting him from Seattle. There's a lot of very, very smart minds who probably feel the same way.
Yes.
Pair of Brewers corner guys. Eric Batanti, Blake Burke. I don't need to sell you too much more if you're the listener on and Eric Batanti, but if you just found us here,
Welcome.
big guy, welcome. Big guy, way more athletic than you'd expect from a 6'5", 200 and what is it, 240 pound. I don't know what the weight is, but
I think
he's
so.
18 years old. And when you look at the way that he moves in the box, the adjustability, the athleticism, the approach, he hit 16 home runs between the Arizona Complex League and Low A as an 18-year-old power bat. And I think he might just be scraping the surface. Now he's going to get his second taste of Low A. He's going to continue to leverage that really patient approach. It's all fields power, and he only puts the ball on the ground at a 30% clip. He could hit 30 bombs this year. Like, I think we're going to see Batanti, who's already a top 100 prospect for us. I think we're going to see him consensus kind of being that we picked Xavier Isaac, remember, as a breakout guy. Like, I think Batanti can be a similar type of breakout as what we saw when Isaac kind of took minor leagues by storm and became a consensus top 100 prospect.
It's really fun to watch a guy that big, and 6'4", 218 is the listed height and weight.
No
6'4",
way he's
218.
218.
No, no shot. But it's really cool to see a guy that big sink into the backside the way he
Right?
does. And just like that is one of those few things. And again, I don't know squat when it comes to hitting, but just seeing that guy load up on the backside, you know that he can absolutely ambush baseballs and send them to Saturn.
He's like moving
And
like Yelich a little bit in there, right? Where it's like,
totally is moving like Yelich. Like I think the cop out answer is, oh, Harper, he sinks into that back leg so well. Yelich really sinks into
yeah,
it. And I'm sure that Brenton Del Chiaro and the rest of that Brewers
yes,
coaching staff saw a lot of
good
Yelich and
shout.
Eric Batanti.
Good shout. Brenton, man, that guy knows swings,
Yeah.
and the Brewers know swings. And
Yeah.
we talk about it like it's not confirmation bias. It's just every time I love a swing, the Brewers end up taking that guy, or I'm watching the video and I'm like, of course he's a Brewers prospect. That's Blake Burke too.
Hmm.
I really like the swing out of the draft. I understand him not being a top 30 pick because it's first base only, and he's a big boy, like 6'3", 240. But getting to see him out in Arizona, that is such an efficient swing for a guy of his archetype. Like that's a big masher who you'd expect to whiff and crush balls to the pole side or whatever. This is a very, very compact and quick stroke that still lives in the zone for a long time. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people this year with how low the strikeout rate is because he has the ability to drive the ball to all fields. He's super quick to the ball where I think with the efficiency, he can cover the top of the zone, but he also is able to stay long through it. So I've seen him golf balls out. And when I was in Arizona, watching him go like just to a little bit to the left of center on a sinker kind of running away from him, I think this guy's going to be able to cover all parts of the plate. The only reason why I think he may not get to that full-fledged breakout is the approach. He does chase a little bit, and that was even something in the draft profile, was around a 30% chase rate. But it's because he also makes a ton of contact for a guy of his archetype. So if Batanti doesn't get there, it's going to be because of the whiff, not the chase. If Burke doesn't get there, it's going to be because of the chase, not the whiff.
There's a lot of Justin Bohr in Blake Burke. Like there's a lot of big man, get a lot of good swings off and hit some balls to the moon. And those are guys that I think like have a spot in baseball. Like I think about Jesus Aguilar as well. Aguilar was a guy that hung around for a while in that organization that's just big man, swing hard and hit the ball really hard too. If he is the backfill for Rhys Hoskins, that's why I think like I don't think they're hesitant with Tyler Black. I think they just want him to play somewhere else that isn't first base because they think Burke can get there very, very quickly. He looked super advanced to the SEC. And even if he is chasing a little bit, he's shown that like the feel for the barrel for a big guy can result in some power on pitches that should not be powered out. And that was what made Bohr a 900 OPS guy in the big leagues. Is Burke going to be a 900 OPS guy? Probably not because he's going to chase a lot, but it's fun to see a big guy have this much feel to hit.
I mean, the out of zone contact too. I mean, 73% in college, out of zone contact. He kept that rolling through his pro debut.
The difference is he's not swinging metal anymore. So
Yeah.
like he's going to start to see negative feedback on those out of zone swings when he was actually just putting balls out on out of zone
Yeah,
swings.
just the craziest part. So that's where he's going to need to cut down the chase, but he has the ability to spoil, and I think that's why he's going to be a pretty balanced hitter. Like I could see average or better hit, and then the plus power, and that's going to be a masher for you for a long time if it works out.
Yep.
Welbyn Francisca, another top 100 prospect who I just think is going to make that leap into consensus top 100 range and maybe even closer to the mid range of a top 100 across the board here. Another switch hitting shortstop who's very advanced in the Guardian system. Why I love him though is despite not being big, 87 mile per hour average exit velocity for a guy like him, for like a 5'8" switch hitting, you'd expect slap hitter. That's really impressive. The stolen base side of things was really impressive. It's a potentially plus hit tool with well above average plate discipline and like for his age and archetype, well above average exit velocities as well. I just think this is a guy that's going to handle his second taste of low A, which he was already great in low A, but second taste of it, unless they push him quickly to high A, really, really well. I just think the numbers are just going to be too darn good. If he doesn't get there, it would be because he's putting the ball on the ground too much. He's got to cut into that 56% ground ball rate. But with the slightly higher EVs and a good feel for the barrel, I think he can easily do that.
I would assume that he hangs out in low A for a while here, right? Like I would think it would be kind of weird for them to push him to high A and just have him hang out in Lynchburg. My understanding, Hanau is going to high A again.
Again, is he?
I think so. So if Hanau is going to high A again, no, he's going to double A
Okay,
after.
I just looked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
there you go.
torched high A. I would have been pretty surprised.
I would have been stunned if Hanau was going to high A, but Hanau is going to double A, so I guess that would make some sense. But there's no point in rushing a guy like Francisca. If he looks awesome through 2 months, like
Yeah.
then send him, but let him hang out in Lynchburg for a little bit.
Yeah, because usually, the biggest thing is when guys are a little overmatched, aside from the whiff, he's not going to whiff as much. It's going to be ground ball rate elevating because your timing
Yeah.
gets thrown off. And like for a guy that I want to see get more comfortable elevating, I don't know if I would aggressively assign him. If he's in low A to start the year, though, and he gets those 2 months of momentum, he's going to 100% be that breakout guy because then he's going to carry that into high A where I think he'll be in a good spot. And I mean, when you're a switch hitting Guardians prospect with a good approach and he hits the ball harder than the Rokios of the world did and things like that, like that bodes well. I think he hits the ball harder than Rokio does now. That's an exciting wrinkle in this. So I think he's going to be a consensus top 100 guy as well.
Yep.
Another Guardian, Joey Oakie. I laid out the pitch for him when we did the Guardian system. This dude's got some crazy stuff. Like if you like Brody Hopkins, you're gonna like Joey Oakie as well. And I know you haven't been able to see him yet because we haven't seen him make his pro debut, but really works down on the mound. Like, and it's this unique release point that I believe is like sub 5 feet. And then he has the four seamer with the same thing where it's going to play up at the top of the zone from that low release. And he also gets really good extension. And then an arm side running sinker that gets like 14, 15 inches. And then he's got this disgusting slider as well. That alone, those three pitches, I think, can make things work. But then he's mixing in a changeup that he's trying to develop. But I just think off the deception and the velocity, it's 93 to 95. Like in the two fastballs, that's going to allow him to, I think, overwhelm low A hitters if that's where he's presumably starts the year. If he's at the complex, then low A. I, I don't see how hitters are going to be able to be putting together comfortable at bats against that.
Kind of seems like the starter kit to just end the year in high A or double, like maybe two starts in double A to end of the year. And I understand that he's young, but like it feels like if he is more advanced in the complex and low A and he goes to high A and looks good, like I could see that, hey, two start sample in Akron or maybe even just a one start sample in Akron to end the year. Um, do you think he can be a top 100 prospect by season's end? I'm not going to say midseason, but season's end.
I do think he can be by the end of the season, yes, because
Yeah.
you have a Guardian's arm already. Like that's going to get people excited and give you a
Right.
little confirmation
The
bias.
subconscious boost. Yeah.
But then you're also looking at a guy who's 6'3", 200, doesn't turn 19 for another month and a half, and extremely unique with the release. Has two different fastballs that he can overwhelm you with and a plus slider. It's a 4.8 release. It's actually very Brody Hopkins ish, and then he's getting above average to plus extension. I can't wait. This is the guy that I have like circled because I just can't wait to see what like a full start looks like with like a little bit more reliable data. But just every amateur appearance I watched was ridiculous. And when he pitched for USA, like hitters did not look comfortable at all. So I'm excited to see. And there's a reason why. Like they use those savings for Bazana. Like the biggest overslot guy for them, I think, other than Mobley because he was drafted so much later,
Yeah.
was Oakie. I mean, they gave him well over slot. It was what 1.3 or 4 million over slot.
Yeah.
Like they spent a lot of money to sign him away from that Iowa commitment.
Yep.
Slade Caldwell, since the draft, like it was Connor Griffin and Bryce Rayner in their own realm in terms of the prepsters. Then it was Slade Caldwell headlining tier 2 of the prep bats for me. Diamondbacks got a good one here. They challenged him in spring training, big league spring training. Like he faced a lot of big league relievers. Kind of sucked, but it was a good experience for him. It's a lot of the things I liked about Kevin McGonigal. I don't think the hit tool is going to be that ridiculous, but
Yeah.
it's going to be really good. It's a very good approach. I think the other reason why his floor is so high is you have a really good defender in center field, plus runner. But I think the bat speed being above average, how twitchy he is, and how he leverages his 5'9" frame with a patient approach. This is just another guy that I see making such a smooth transition into low A.
Yes. I don't know much about Caldwell, but the way that you pitched him to me was very McGonagall-ish,
Yes.
and it just seems like McGonagall has like kind of that like stronger base and also better feel to hit at this point right now. So if he's like a little farther off McGonagall, that's a top 100 prospect because McGonagall's a top 10 prospect a
Yeah.
year into his, professional career.
And he's 5'9" is probably generous. He's probably closer to like 5'6", 5'7". But
Yeah. So
it,
like, is it Jet Williams? Like Jet is a guy that I guess I'm subconsciously a little bit lower on because I saw him during spring training and he was breathtakingly small.
yes.
And there's one guy that's been really good in Major League Baseball that has been breathtakingly small, and that's Altuve. And
Yeah.
there's a reason that Altuve is a Hall of Fame outlier.
Well, and the reason why I think Caldwell could end up becoming a little bit more of a well-rounded prospect, and also we saw though Jet Williams leveraged that small strike zone,
Yeah.
hammered pitches in the zone, and became one of baseball's better prospects because of that. And
Right.
then at the upper levels, he's been banged up, and then also the whiff has crept in more. With
Yeah.
Caldwell, though, you have, and you're trying to figure out where you're going to put Jet. Like, is it like, can he get by at shortstop? Blah, 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 blah. Caldwell's going to be a plus center fielder, I think.
Yeah.
So that helps elevate a ton. And then you look at the offensive profile. I think the field to hit could be a little bit better. He's maybe not going to have the generational patience, but it's
Yeah.
good patience. And maybe he doesn't pull the ball in the air quite to the same degree, but I don't need that out of this archetype. So I'm excited about Caldwell, and as far as position players go, he's definitely one of them that I'm most excited to see.
Cool.
We're firing from half court with the last two now,
Yeah.
and that's why I love doing this. I wanted to mix it up. Edward Florentino of the Pirates. I would not have put this guy in there if I didn't see him at spring breakout and see him on the backfields a little bit and see him take some BP. Again, firing from half court here. He could just get overwhelmed at the complex because we've only seen him in the DSL. But he made some changes to his swing. I was comparing it to the DSL video. He had a big leg kick and a big barrel tip. He toned down the leg kick and thank goodness eliminated that barrel tip that would have made playing baseball a lot harder for him stateside. And I could see how much more comfortable he was in the box, whether it was on the backfields or in BP, where he was peppering the ball all over the yard. He's 18 years old. He'll be 18 for the entirety of the season. And I think the Pirates, like, they don't develop great offensively. They may have a guy here. They're still trying to figure out where they're going to play him defensively. I think corner outfield's probably that makes the most sense. But he's a big dude. Like, he's 6'2", but the frame looks even bigger than that. He might have grown an inch or two. And there's a lot more room for strength in there. And he was impressively patient at the DSL last year, sub 10 chase rate. So you have superb patience, the ability to elevate the ball consistently, above average EVs already for his age, and a mechanical adjustment that he's already made that I think puts him in a good spot. I could see Florentino hitting his way off the Florida Complex League quickly.
Okay. I don't know. That's awesome. The numbers look great. I believe you.
All right, I'm expecting you to fill in a lot here on Yordan Chalas.
I already said I'm out. I already said I'm out at the outset. I'm done. $10,000 IFA guy, I'm done.
Those guys have never been good before.
Ever. No, Christian Javier stinks.
Chalas, what do you think?
Dude, I don't know. Let's go Yordan Chalas.
Chalas, 6'4", 190 pounds. They signed him for 10 grand. He immediately, I think, turned some heads in the complex league. Just like, okay, this guy throws 95 and has a live arm. Then in 24, his fastball ticks up to closer to 96. And I think, actually, excuse me, he averaged 97 in relief. But he was athletic on the mound, loose delivery. And I think the Diamondbacks were like, hey, maybe we should try to stretch this guy out a little bit because that fastball is live. He's missing a ton of bats and he's been around the zone a little bit more than we expected. So he's got that fastball working for him, which I think is going to be is a plus pitch. The slider looks like it can be average or above. And then he's working on a splinker. And I saw him throw some of them. It looked gross at like 89, 90. So he can get that pitch. You can get ground balls with that pitch. The four-seamer gets swings and misses at the top from like a pretty deceptive release. And then a slider that I think is going to get better and better because of how live the arm is and how quick the arm is. This is a full court shot because this guy's not even in top 30s, but he's 21 years old for the entirety of the season. He's 6'4", 190. I think there's more room for maybe even more velo and strength. And that splinker, I only saw like 4 of them, but it was enough for me to say, you know what? I think this guy goes from reliever I never even heard of to maybe a guy that's in the top 20 in their system. So shout out Yordan Chalas.
I'm in, man. Let's go. Fire me up.
We got him. We're watching this year. Like I'm going to be giving you Chalas updates every single week.
Yeah, and I'll give you Edward Florentino updates. I'll keep tabs on him.
Let's go.
Divide and conquer.
That'll do it for this episode. Unless you have any final thoughts on anything.
I don't think so. This is always like a fun one to keep tabs on, and there are a couple of guys like I too would have, absolutely sharpied in Acosta and Hopkins to being 2 of my guys, and I'm like, yeah, these guys are going to step up in weight class.
Yep. So again, if you have any other breakout picks, let us know in the YouTube comments. I always love seeing what you guys are all on, and we can talk about it there. And we've been talking about it in the Discord as well. So that link is in the episode description to join in there. We're also doing a Bowman draft break in the Discord as well. So I'm excited to be doing that. If you have any questions about it, happy to answer and let you know. Dodgers top prospects are next. That's going to be fun. A lot of good players in there, though it does kind of get different. I don't know. Like, it's not obvious after the top 8 or 9. It's like, I'm watching a lot of video right now, trying to figure out how it all sorts out, because look, it is one of baseball's best farm systems, but it's not like it's absolutely loaded outside the top 10. So there's some interesting conversation to go through there and the 10 to 15 range.
Jack Dreyer, number 11.
Yes. Yeah. Before it's too late.
He looks great.
We'll talk Dodgers prospects with you later this week.